How much do you think you could win betting sports if you were able to place your bets halfway through the first quarter? In this episode of Storytime, I'm going to tell you how I made $50,000 doing this and how I eventually got caught. And please, if you find this type of video interesting, let me know with a like or a comment. I have tons of stories from my time working as a bookie or from time spent in prison or just my 20 years involved in sports betting. I've told a lot of them already to members of my Discord community, but if they do well here on TikTok or YouTube, I'll try to put more of them out. Now, before explaining the how part of this story, I first need to explain the who and when. Now, when I first got into sports betting in the early 2000s, it was way different than it is today. You called your bookie and placed your bets over the phone, and like many new sports bettors, I sucked and I lost a lot. I got sick of losing and I became a bookie. I started off small, taking bets from friends, but pretty quickly grew a somewhat big sports betting operation. I eventually caught the attention of a bigger sports betting operation ran and operated by two guys both named Mike. Everyone referred to them as the Mikes. I had already been a bookie for someone else prior, but he got busted, and at this time I was kind of on my own. But now working for the Mikes, this allowed me to grow bigger because now I could take bets from bigger bettors, take more risks because I had the Mikes backing me now. On weeks when the book lost and I had to pay out the players, I'd get the money from the Mikes. There was no out-of-pocket risk on my end. I just had to make sure they got their cut on the losing weeks, which I think at the time was 70-30 split their way. Every night, I'd be at my desk taking bets. The phone would be nonstop ringing. When 7 p.m. came around, I'd call in all the bets that started at 7 p.m. into the Mikes, and then again at 8 p.m., and then I'd close around 9 p.m. This was every weekday, depending on the season and the sport. On weekends, I was basically open all day. Around my second full NFL season working under the Mikes, I had 3 or 4 different agents below me who were taking bets from their own clientele, calling them into me. Plus, I had roughly 70 people calling me directly, placing bets. Weekends were crazy during football season. You had to be open and available all day Saturday and Sunday, not only to answer the phone, but you needed to be very organized and good at accounting and be able to do math pretty quickly. Everything was done with pen and paper, and any mistakes made would cost you money. Mistakes never made you money because mistakes in my favor were usually discovered and then disputed, but nobody's going to dispute a mistake in their favor. On Sunday, one Sunday, I basically discovered a major flaw in how Mike's operation operated, and this is how I was basically able to win roughly $50K. During NFL season on Sundays, I'd open around 10 a.m. and start taking the bets. At around 12:50 or 12:55, before the 1 p.m. games kicked off, I'd tally up all the bets I had and make sure the agents I had working for me had all their bets into me. So by 1 p.m., I'd be ready to call all the bets into the Mikes. One Sunday, after calling all the bets into the Mikes for the 1 p.m. games, I realized by the time I hung up the phone, the first quarter was almost over. If I called at 1 p.m., it sometimes took a good 20 minutes to get all the bets in. Sometimes I'd even be put on hold because other bookies and bettors were calling their bets into the Mikes. It was the next Sunday after this I realized the potential and money-making opportunity I had here. Now, keep in mind, I'm still very much a square sports bettor, didn't have the slightest clue about what it takes to be a winning bettor. I simply just took advantage of the time and era and a sportsbook operation, I guess, that grew too fast, too soon. It's 1 p.m., I make the call, I start reading off the bets, and on the TV, I see the Patriots are up 14-0 early. Being a bookie in Boston, there was always a ton of bets on the Patriots. I don't remember the total amount of bets I had taken already on the Patriots that Sunday, but I added 500 onto the total amount I was calling in. I was basically placing a $500 bet on a team who already was up 14-0. Now, what's crazy is the Patriots didn't cover that game. At this time, the Patriots were always huge favorites, and we would make them even bigger favorites, knowing everyone would bet them anyway. So even though when I bet them they were up 14-0, there was still another 3.5 quarters left to play, and they were probably double-digit favorites anyway. But this was the start of what eventually made me a lot of money. The very next week, I started betting first half bets on any teams who jumped out to an early lead. I was praying for opening kickoff returns or early scores, especially if like an underdog took an early lead. I'd pound them in the first half. I don't think I was able to bet first quarter bets at this time. I can't remember, but I'd have my roommates tracking every game and letting me know scores while I was on the phone calling the bets in. I started talking slower to drag out the combos, asking them random questions to give me more time. Now, betting a team up 7-0 in the first quarter wasn't an automatic lock or anything, but I understood this was a huge advantage and I needed to place a lot more of these type of bets for a lot more money. I don't remember how much money I actually profited. I say 50K in the title because I'm sure it was around that much. I was able to do it for 2 months. And it's not like I could bet 5,000 on some of these games. It'd draw too much attention. Like all good things, they eventually come to an end. The Mikes hired a guy named Mario who was in charge of like accounting and like kind of auditing things. And it didn't take him long to realize my book wasn't making them the money it should have, or, that it once did. And they identified the leak was the first half wagers, and they pretty much figured out why. Plus, I kind of remember another one of their agents started doing the same thing I was doing. I can't remember if someone told him what I was doing or even if I did. I might have even told this kid myself, but he bought a Range Rover like after 3 weeks of doing this, and he had half the clientele I did. I think he just went like really hard with it, and that probably didn't help the longevity of this. They couldn't prove I was taking advantage of this. They just knew they weren't making money through my book. And this was around the time all the bookies were making the transition to PPH books and players could place bets online. This, of course, eliminated me being able to post bet, but it also made my job as a bookie 100 times easier. Bookies today have no clue how easy they have it. Now, that's the short version of how I made $50,000 betting sports without knowing anything about betting sports. Hope you found it entertaining. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you could give this a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. Trying to switch up the content a little bit, only if people find it interesting. If not, I'll just stick to game breakdowns. But until next time, good luck with your bets.